First off, let's talk about the difference between President Obama, what we saw back in 2009, and President Trump, and the way he's been approaching this. What would you like to see from the president that you haven't seen already?
Well, first of all, that contrast between Obama in the summer of 2009 and President Trump is really stark. Certainly, it was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever witnessed as an American citizen when we were silent and a million people plus were in the streets demonstrating, and they finally started to clear the streets, and we absolutely said nothing. How morally bankrupt were we at the time, you know, not to stand at least morally behind the Iranians, much as Reagan stood behind the Poles when they were demonstrated against the communist regime. We need to execute and implement the comprehensive strategy that the administration has undertaken with Iran. What we are doing so different than the Obama administration, Maria, is that we are going to stand up against their malign and aggressive behavior in the region with our allies. And we've got to start with Syria, because Iran is building a land bridge through Iran, through Iraq, through Syria to Lebanon, to be able to move missiles and rockets to the Hezbollah, put those missiles in Syria, and encroach on Israel and Jordan. That is all coming. It is a very dangerous and evolving situation. And we've got to start to implement a strategy pushing back on Iranians, much more so than rhetoric.
So what should that plan be? How do you push back? I mean, this morning we're talking a bit about Pakistan as well. The country has summoned now the U.S. ambassador following President Trump's tweet in which he is accusing Pakistan of lies and deceit toward the U.S. He said this: the United States has foolishly given Pakistan more than $33 billion in aid over the last 15 years. They have given us nothing but lies and deceit, thinking of our leaders as fools. They give safe haven to the terrorists. We hunt in Afghanistan with little help, no more. So, General, this is how this president is approaching Pakistan. How do you want to see him approach Iran? What is that plan? And, of course, what's your reaction to what he's telling Pakistan right here?
Yeah, well, first of all, with the Sunni Arabs, we should be trying to contain the Iranians west of the Euphrates River Valley in Syria, so they're not able to put in place this land bridge that they so desperately want. And when it comes to Pakistan, so our viewers can understand, in Pakistan, the Taliban, the Afghan Taliban, has two safe havens that they've been operating in Pakistan ever since the downfall of the Taliban back in 2001. The Pakistanis provide them, and listen, Marie, they provide them intelligence on our operations that we are conducting inside of Afghanistan. They provide them with some training, and they provide them with significant amount of resources. It's not enough to talk about what they're doing and to hold the aid. What they will do, they'll make up that money from the Chinese easily. What we really need to do with the Pakistanis is we need to sanction the chief of staff of their army and the chief of their intelligence service and deny them international travel, make them the pariahs that they truly are, because they're responsible for the deaths of many civilians inside of Afghanistan and certainly the deaths of American soldiers. Now, what they do is they hold over our head, Maria, the fact that all the supplies that we provide to our troops comes through Pakistan. And they'll say, well, we're going to shut that down. All right. Let them shut it down, and we'll have to come through Europe. It'll take a longer amount of time. It'll be more expensive. But we should not be intimidated or threatened by them. We've got to stand up to the Pakistanis. There's no way that this war can end favorably to the Afghan people and to the United States as long as those sanctuaries are in Pakistan. That's the reality of it.
Okay, so then you like this tack that he's taking in terms of pushing back on the $33 billion, giving aid to Pakistan when we know where they're using the money.
It's a start, but it's not going to be enough, as I said, because they'll make up for that. But it's a start. We're pushing back. Previous administrations have never taken a tough road with the Pakistanis, and we have got to call them out for what they're doing.
I want to get your take on ISIS. There's so much to talk to you about this morning, but let me turn to North Korea first, because this is a surprise. Kim Jong-un issuing a new threat against the United States in his New Year's Day address. He says the entire U.S. mainland was within the country's nuclear strike range, that nuclear button is on his desk. How seriously should the international community take this latest threat? And what about this idea that it's actually opening up a window to talk about the Olympics with South Korea?
Well, first of all, as Director Pompeo said to us a number of weeks ago before the holidays, North Korea, in terms of they're developing a re-entry vehicle, that is a ballistic missile capable of re-entering the Earth's atmosphere, and also miniaturizing a nuclear weapon on top of an intercontinental ballistic missile, is months away, not years away, which tells me that 2018 is likely, based on the director of the CIA, that it's likely to be a showdown year for the United States and North Korea and certainly China. And we're heading clearly in that direction. Now, the fact that the North Koreans want to have some discussions, I think that's good. They should be condition-based. Remember, the North Koreans have always negotiated with American leadership, and in doing so, they have always traded time on their side in doing it. In other words, they deceived us, and they were able to develop advanced capabilities. That has been a ploy of theirs. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't sit down and talk to them, but we should have some conditions for that talk.
Now, there's a lot of conversation about ISIS really getting defeated, not 100% obviously, but really getting defeated in a significant way. To what do you attribute that to, General? Obviously, here, too, you've got a much different approach from President Trump versus President Obama.
Yes. President Obama would never let his commanders do what they wanted to do with ISIS. And the fact that he permitted ISIS to exist from the invasion in January until just last year under the Obama administration, I think was a strategic blunder on Obama's part, because it helped ISIS become an iconic worldwide brand. It was their visibility that enabled them to expand into 30 countries, to attack NATO 40 different times, either directed, supported, or at least inspired attacks by people killing their own citizens. This never should have happened. The sanctuary in Syria should have been crushed in 2014, 2015 at the latest. It took Obama 15 months before he ever fired a round at the Syrian oil fields that ISIS was using as their major funding source. 15 months before we ever did anything about it. 9 months before he ever fired a shot in anger to help the Iraqis after they asked for assistance. So Trump came in, reset the table, Maria, and began to crush ISIS in their sanctuary and take the territory back.
You know, you've got to believe that a lot of these actions are also resonating in China, General, because we need the Chinese to push back on North Korea. And I think this president understands the threat that he is facing when faced with the North Korean regime. So whether it's, you know, shooting missiles to Syria while he's having dinner with the president of China, or taking this hard stance against Pakistan, or any of the other hard choices that have taken place, he's also sending messages to China, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And his national security strategy goes right after it. I mean, they define it as the long-term strategic threat to the United States' interest in the Pacific and also globally, that China clearly wants to replace the United States as the preeminent global power in the world. They've given enormous authority and consolidation of power to President Xi to be able to move in that direction. They do not agree with the international order as we currently know it. The same thing with the Russians. This is all about a return to big power competition. We're on a collision course with China, to be sure. In the meantime, certainly President Trump recognizes that he needs China's cooperation to shut down the North Koreans, to be sure.
Exactly. General, good to see you, sir. Thanks so much.
Yeah, good.